Hello. Welcome back. Thanks for joining me. Hit like, hit subscribe. In this video, I'm going to do something a bit different. It's not a tutorial. It's not a how-to. It's not a hack. I'm going to go through 5 tracks that I wish I made. And there's obviously more than 5. I think I'll start with 5. I might do a part 2, maybe a part 3. It's just to highlight a lot of my influence, a lot of tracks and artists and producers that I had followed from an early age of my production journey, how these tracks have helped shaped my sound, my intentions and level of curiosity as a producer, general influence, and also I still use them as reference tracks, to be honest. So I'm going to get straight into it. I'm going to start with 5. I'm going to go in order of how old they are. So I'm going to go back to 2013, and it's going to be from none other than Rebekah. The track is Self-Destruct. It came out on CLR, Chris Liebing's label, back in the day. How I came across it, I'm going to give some context to each track. For me, context is very important for how I sort of discover music, why I like it. Context plays a big part for me. Huge Chris Liebing fan. I think it was the same year. Where are we? It was 2000. Was it? Yes, it was. It was. I think it just before this had come out. I don't think it was released yet. He was down in Melbourne playing a gig at Brown Alley, and I went and saw him live, and it was unreal. I think it was 3-4 hour set, whatever it was, and he was crushing it the whole way through, as usual, especially back then. But one of the standout tracks was this one. I didn't know what it was at the time, and funny enough, it sent me mad, basically because of the kick drum. I'm going to skim through it quickly because I know there's copyright and stuff, and I'll sort of talk over the top, but I heard it, was on the hunt to find it. Surely enough, it came out not long after. Found out it was Rebekah. I think I knew her already previously, but I think this really put her on my radar, and then obviously ordered the vinyl, and I started playing it out myself. So 2013, CLR, different era, different style of techno. It's a lot different to what we hear now, even with her own production. It's back at 128 beats per minute, and it doesn't change much throughout the song, but the kick drum, when I first heard that kick drum, especially back then when I could not produce how I produce now, I didn't have the knowledge I have now, the tools I have now, it sent me bloody mad, and I just had to work out how she done it. And I was referencing this kick drum for a long time, and you probably hear a similar kick drum in my tracks early on because I was referencing it so heavy. So it's not fast, it is very simple, but that kick drum, especially back then, a lot of similar kick drums were around back then, and it just sort of carried the whole track. Might sound a bit not funny now without the context, especially if you're newer to the scene and familiar with a lot of harder and faster stuff now, but it was killer. Used to break down, and when I started playing it a lot, I would just filter that kick for ages, and that anticipation of that kick coming back in would send the crowd bloody nuts. And that's exactly what happened when Chris Liebing played it. And if you go back and find old sets, old videos, you'll see the crowd reactions. It's all there. Again, what else I liked about it was the simplicity of the track. There wasn't too much going on, but and this is where I learnt the power of a kick drum probably really early on, where it was strong enough where that was the focal point. I understand it is for most tracks in this genre, but it really just did all the heavy lifting, and so it should, so a kick should. I still think it is that way, but there's not too many lays, there's not that much going on, but you know, the Atmos noises, the white noise build-ups, and those claps, man, it just worked. It worked every time I played it, every time someone else played it, and it really put her on the radar, and obviously took her to where she is today. But it is one of my favorites. I've still got it. Luckily enough now, we've obviously been friends over the years. She supported a lot of my stuff. We did a collab 2-3 years ago. There might be another one on the way. And I was lucky enough where she actually signed it for me, the actual original vinyl. So this track is quite special to me. So that's number one that I wish I made. Shout out Rebekah and CLR. We're going to go to 2014. We're going to go to me boy JoeFarr, absolute legend producer. He was one of the main guys that really turned me on to what I make today, basically. This wasn't the first track of his that I'd heard, or EP that I heard of his. This was from his Century EP on Power Vacuum, which was a crazy label back then, a label I wanted to get on. I wasn't at that level production-wise where I felt confident enough to send them demos, but everything they put out, I was buying on wax straight away. From his Century EP, and again, a lot of these stories are going to be the same in terms of what I thought of him. That's why they're in this video. But his sounds, man, even now, he's a gun. He's still one of my favorite producers, no doubt. Let's check it out. Again, you're going to notice a lot slower than what it is now. We're at 129, 130. 10 years ago, his kick drums are always great. But man, when I heard these sounds going on, when I heard all those sounds going on, it sent me bananas, because at that stage, I had just started buying some hardware and modular, which you can thank him, Blowan, and Ansome for, were my reasons why I got in, especially with starting with Electron gear, because I saw them using it straight out. But those sounds, man, and he did an Against the Clock video many years ago, and just the way he puts sounds together is crazy, especially the way he uses Electron machines. And I was hearing these sounds, I didn't know how to make them. I was very frustrated as a producer 10 years ago, 11 years ago. But man, nuts. And I still crank out a bit of JoeFarr. I'll just speed it up a bit. And he's still actively producing, but man, his percussion, man. Whew. On your big Joe. So I'm getting a bit excited. Now, obviously, back then as well, even though that is the focal point, they weren't necessarily like, we weren't always really waiting for the huge main drop. The anticipation to the main drops, I think back then, even though there was breakdowns, were just part of the track. It was part of the structure. It wasn't always such a goal, I feel, to get to a major, huge breakdown, even though that still happens with the main drop, because it's the main drop, it's the last drop, it's supposed to be most impactful, but they always just carried through. But the sounds, the quality, the composition, the arrangement was always what fascinated me. And I've referenced this track so many times when I was younger. Man, even now, like it's 10 years old, man. 10 years old. Come on. Shout out Joe. Check him out. He's a legend. He's a mastering engineer as well. Power Vacuum, the label, I'm not too familiar with them. I don't even know if they're still going, to be honest. No disrespect, I don't know. But all those labels back then, around these sort of artists and that sort of time, was all quality, like no doubt about it. So shout out JoeFarr. Thank you very much. Number 3, 2015, we go to the one and only Ansome. His White Horse EP came out on Perk Tracks, and me and him were chatting like early on back then, just back and forth, and I'm lucky enough to, call him a friend all these years. He's done a remix for me and stuff like that, and we've hung out a few times. But his production, for me, he's probably at the top, definitely most influential for me, and probably a lot of people who were around back then starting producing. More so, he was just so unique. There was nothing else like it back then. Like there was other people doing things similar, especially with hardware and that, but he really took Eurorack, I think, along with Blowan and stuff, to new exposures and brought it to the masses, especially to producers, I feel. And he's one of my go-tos always for referencing not just his production and arrangement and his sound design and what he gets out of his hardware, but his mixes, man. His mixes are always unreal. One of his tracks, Copper, from his, I think it was his second album, always referenced the low end on that. So check that out if you want to reference low end. But yeah, let's get into it. He was crunchy, he was hard, but he was grooving, man. He was always grooving, and it was his percussion, his choice of sounds, and the way he arranged things. And I noticed that. Hang on, it's all happening here. Hang on, man. I wish I made almost every track Ansome, but this is one of the early standouts for me. Man, when I first heard that drop, I just wanted to go buy a Euro rack and hardware. Probably not the right reason to go buy some analog equipment, especially when you don't know how to use it. But I didn't care because I'm like, hang on, well, he's using that. I want to make that. I need that. I don't advise that mindset now that I know what I know, and buying a piece of hardware is not going to solve your problems. It's a luxury. You can do everything in the box, as I've shown on the channel before. But man, when I heard that drop, I was tripping out. 2015, I sort of made some leaps, had some signings. I was, somewhat comfortable with my production. But when he came out and I heard that, I said, man, you just got to, you got to really rethink what you're doing. Really rethink what you're doing. And that keeps happening to me, which I think is a good thing. It's not a negative thing. Yeah, his percussion, the way he push and pull sound is always unreal. And I was lucky enough to work with him in the studio when he was here in Melbourne on tour years ago. And I could see that, how he'd record some live bits and would muck around. The way he moved things around and just placed them was just always clever, but simple, but it all worked together. That's why he was always grooving, man, always. And the way he hints elements as well is just always schmick. One more time, that last drop. Anyway, it's depressing me. Ansome, the boys, shout out. All right, 2018, same label, Perk Tracks. I hope I get the pronunciation right, probably because of my Aussie accent. Scalameriya. hang on. Scalameriya. I've always stuffed it up. No disrespect. You're a legend. I love you. 2018, this track came out on Perk Tracks. It was a 4-track EP, I'm pretty sure. And the whole EP is unreal. And I think around then I was getting pretty confident to, it's a true story, send some demos to Ali at Perk Tracks. I sort of felt I was comfortable where he was playing some of my music, and I'm like, if he's playing it, he obviously likes it. Then, so I was actively working on demos to send him. I think it was the start of 2018. When was it? Where are we? Yeah, probably the start. Then I got the promo for this a couple weeks before it came out. The whole EP blew me away, but when I heard this song, I pretty much just wanted to burn my studio to the ground. I just wanted to burn it to the ground, get Ableton, delete it, everything I had, all the hardware, put it in the bin, because I was nowhere near ready. Maybe a bit hard criticism on myself, sure, but we're going to show you why. 134, getting a bit faster. Not as old as the last few, but I mean, going his kick drums. This guy, sound design, weapon, and he's all in the box, I'm pretty sure too. Check out his masterclass on Home of Sound. But man, how many times I've referenced this track. More so for just getting some influence for arrangement. It just happens the whole way through, man. But it just
my will alone that you survive.
And funny that we hear that vocal. It's one of the reasons why I was looking for Manipulator in the last video I made, because I heard this vocal and I just couldn't do it. But it was this part here when we get to the...
I am the beginning and end of lives. Let my flesh be your
the drop.
sacrament.
Come on, man. Come on, man. When I heard that drop, I almost burnt the studio down. And not only was that what I still think is a guitar sound, obviously he's probably synthesized it, but that sound over the drop, not only was the sound itself really impressive to me, but at that time I'm like, man, who just drops such a long sound at the main drop and just lets that go? Like, it spun me out, man. He's unreal. He's still going. Check out his label, Void Plus One. He's still actively producing and releasing quality. Even when he's not releasing his own stuff, the other artists he's getting on there are just at a high caliber, as you could clearly understand. But yeah, he's always been a huge inspiration, a huge influence of mine with production, and his dedication to getting better and sound designing is just absolutely unreal. Check him out. Shout out, brother. Thank you very much. I know we've never met, but shout out. You're an absolute superstar. Last but not least, 2019, we're going to go to KRTM, track Sapien. This one was on Arts. Is it Arts? Yes, it was. It was on Arts. And we've sped up the fastest one out of these 5, 138. Where do I start, man? Where do I start? Number one, he's so loud. In a good way. Love it. Absolutely love it. I've referenced this track so many times. It's more so, he's just so creative, man. He's just so good. And his textures are insane. And that's the thing too, right? As you've seen a lot of my videos, I want to do a video on this. Making the sounds ain't that too, it's not that hard, right? We can, like, a lot of the stuff that you'll hear isolated in these tracks, like if you focus on an element and listen to it and break it down, you know, you'd probably be able to sit down and you know, make that element or make a texture-based sound that would sound like that, right? Across all these tracks we've just heard. But putting them together and arranging them and making them work is a whole nother thing. Whole nother thing. A lot of people can make sounds, and that's great. You know, there's a skill in that. There's a challenge to that. I'm no discounting those efforts at all. But putting it together to get end results like the tracks above is the real challenge as a producer, I feel. Just, man, drums, hard, crunchy, industrial, textured, just, man, and he changes it up, man. He changes it up all the time. At times it can be unpredictable, which I love. You know, he's always had several drops in his tracks. That hardcore influence in there. He's obviously on some of those labels. Man, come on. Even that vocal. Yeah, I heard that vocal. I'm like, why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I put something like that in there? And the percussion. For me, the biggest reference point when I first heard it was that gallop. Ba-dum bum. Dum ba-dum bum. Ba-dum ba-dum bum. Ba-dum ba-dum bum. What the fuck, man? Seriously. And then, like, you know, you hear that sort of offbeat perk change. Like, man, there's too much going on. Freak, man. You get the point. Check him out. He's still a Don. I think he just released a, might be an album. I think it was an EP. I saw the artwork. He's an OG. He's a machine. I love it. Check him out. Shout out. I know we've never met, but man, always inspirational, always killing it, always pushing boundaries. He does a lot of stuff visually, not just like as in like his artwork for his releases that you might see online or in person, but his visuals. He did like I think he created a whole visual video for, I think it was an album on Hate Channel, I'm pretty sure, which is, again, just spins you out. So his dedication as well and his mindset and approach is tip top. So I'm going to wrap it up there. I wanted to keep it at 5. There's more than 5 tracks. There's probably 5 tracks from each artist on here, to be honest, that I wish I made. Something different, and I think I might do maybe a part 2, maybe a part 3. If you enjoyed it, let me know. I'll do some more. I've got plenty more that I'd love to share with you guys. But yeah, all the artists individually have helped shape my sound. I'm lucky enough where I've been able to collab, remix, and work with these people, be friends with these people, and hang out with them in the past, and keep those relationships going. And I've taken something from each of them, as I do with many other producers, to try and develop my own style and sound and concept over the years. And I think that's important, where, you know, when I say referencing, we're not sitting there trying to rip off or do anything like that. We are, you know, taking bits and pieces from all of them and merging them all together to try and get your own unique result. But obviously you'll hear those influences throughout several different tracks or EPs and stuff like that. So hope that helps. Hit like, hit subscribe. Shout out to all you legends. We'll speak soon. Thank you.